¿Qué pasó? Camera one. There we go. Okay. ¿Qué pasó, cochinos en sucias? I'm that vato gallo. Welcome to another episode of Sucias Are My Favorite. In today's episode, I had a guest that was going to come on. They had a family emergency. So, fortunately, they're not going to be here tonight. And I just want to say I appreciate them for reaching out to me, letting me know ahead of time. And also, I hope everything goes well with their family. I'm not going to put their business out there. So now I have to come up with a new idea, something else to talk about today. Oh, hey, hi. Oh, shit. This is going to be interesting. So that's the YouTube live stream. This is my Instagram. So, hi. I'm not going to say names because I don't want to put you on YouTube later, but you're the only one here. So thanks for being here. Damn, not even my YouTube normal people are usually on. But in any case, so the reason I'm on so late now, or later than usual, is the neighborhood gets kind of loud. People walking their dogs, arguing, talking, riding bicycles, riding motorcycles, revving their cars and engines. So that's why I'm here. So, hi, everybody. So you're catching me on the Instagram live stream, but I'm doing a YouTube live stream and recording for my podcast. So you're doing the behind the scenes, and I'm not going to be able to talk to you guys so much because I got to focus up here. But anybody else that joins in, just let them know what's going on, if you don't mind. I'd appreciate it. So today's episode was going to be about Derby, kind of a rebuttal thing going on regarding, actually, how is my audio? Mic check. Okay, so you can hear me. Hopefully you can hear me better than what's there. Sorry. So today's episode is going to be about Derby, or having a rebuttal to my Derby podcast, or even just come up with ideas or toss some ideas around on how to make Derby better. However, don't have my guest here today. So what we're going to talk about is love and death. So I know this happens to a lot of us where we kind of forget about our loved ones that are older. We just kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll go talk to my grandma, or I'll talk to my great aunt or my cousin twice removed or whatever. But someone that's older than you, normally the family members just kind of are forgotten by the wayside, and you figure, oh, well, my cousin will talk to them, or my sibling or my aunt or some other relative is going to keep in touch with that relative that you don't. Why are you're charging? Why is the screen going dark? Oh, yeah, because, okay, sorry. Okay. So dealing with loved ones and family members and whatnot that you don't see often because life gets too busy, gets too far ahead of you. And even with my own sister, because I could have had a chance to see her a few days ago, but I was just kind of frazzled. I only had 24 hours in town, and I couldn't make time to go see her. Well, about 36 hours, but by the time I got there, it was a little after midnight. Why does the screen keep doing? Did I lose my live stream on YouTube? Paused. Okay, what is going on? Hang on 1 second. Settings. Okay, sorry about that. I had to turn off my stuff to make sure that the screen doesn't turn off. That was my issue here. Sorry about that. So, so normally when we deal with our loved ones and friends and family, like I said, I went to go to town. My sister had gone through chemotherapies, having some issues that I didn't realize until today, which was a few days after I'd been in town. But if I'd reached out to her, I would have known then, and probably would have figured out a way to make time, because I did have about 3 hours of downtime that I recorded a podcast separately or an episode. So it's frustrating because it kind of reminds me that we make time, or the notion of we make time for the things that are important to us or the things that we want to, but when we often forget that there's other things that we should try to make more time for. And so instead of scrolling on Instagram or YouTube, Facebook, reach out to a loved one, reach out to a family member that you haven't spoken to in a while. And I made that challenge a couple of weeks ago or a couple of episodes ago to reach out to someone you hadn't talked to, but that was more of reach out to someone that you just lost touch with, not so much a family member, someone that's close to you, just someone that you're friends with, friendly, whatever, and you hadn't talked to. And I realized I should talk to my boy on Instagram because I haven't talked to him in a few years. So, and I was trying to figure out a segue from love, death, family members into love with a spouse, a loved one, because it took me almost 40 years. Well, I take that back. Let me ask you. What's another way to do this? So, as far as your memory goes, like your earliest memory is what? Maybe 5 years old, somewhere in that area. Is there, when you think of, oh, it took me X amount of time to realize something, are you counting from the time you were born or from the time you can recall your earliest memory, like your earliest consciousness, so to speak? Normally I do from the time I was born. So almost 40 years it took me to realize that love is probably the most important thing that you can have in a relationship. Excuse me. I don't know. There's a lot of people joining on the Instagram thing that I don't recognize, but the point of love versus sex. So most of my youth, I realized, or I thought that the most important aspect about a relationship was sex. Not realizing or not thinking far ahead that at some point in time in the future, my junk's not going to work. And it's going to happen for all guys. And for females, at some point, females are not going to be so much in the mood or as readily or as easily as they were when they're younger, once they hit menopause. So for females, usually it's younger than males. But I hadn't thought of the idea, or when I had my motorcycle accident where I broke my hip, that caused some issues down there. And essentially my libido, or at least my desire to do things, is still high, but my ability to do so is like average or below. Actually, I need to look this up. What is the average amount of times that guys want to perform? But it's below my average or normal of wanting it every day, at least, to probably being able to do something every other day, every few days. It just depends. Also, diet kind of plays into that because I'm older now. But dealing with love it's frustrating to me that it took me this long to realize the importance of love in a relationship. And I didn't think of this also when I was giving advice to my skater friends. Back in those days, back in that time, I was more focused on the conversation that was going on with my skater friend and the male that they wanted me to basically be like the translator for, to translate what the guy was saying to what the skater needed to know what the relationship was going to be. More often than not, it was just a sexual relationship, but they wanted more. And it was kind of a weird microcosm that San Antonio is. For the San Antonio area, it seems like nobody's really, or no males are really interested in a serious monogamous relationship. Everybody's used to the hookup culture there. And even then, with the hookup culture, there's not even that consistency, because what threw me off is, what's the word? Even more guys were interested in just one night stands and I guess getting their numbers up and kind of keeping my skater friends, female friends, kind of in the loop or stringing them along in the hopes of maybe for the females, for the skaters. They thought that it was possible chance of a relationship, where the males were more focused on just kind of stringing them along enough to be able to hook up with them at a later time and date. So instead of ghosting, it was a term I'd heard, it's called zombieing, or being a zombie, where they disappear for a while and they just come back at a random point in time. So again, at the time, my focus was just, I had blinders on and I was just focused on the problem at hand versus a big picture idea of what was going on. And what I wasn't focused on or paying attention to was the ages of both people, the socioeconomic status, the money that both people were bringing, the intention and the communication that they were both having or not having. And which was, in hindsight, instead of talking to me about these questions, they should have talked to the guy about what they were having an issue with or what they wanted clarification on. And eventually I would kind of tell them, hey, you need to ask them what they mean by X, Y, or Z, because what the skaters were relating to me was one-sided, what the guy said to them. From that, I had to figure out, okay, what did she really say or do to get that reaction from the male versus also trying to politely, kindly, nicely navigate and give advice, or not so much advice, just kind of interpret for my female friends what the males were saying to them. So an example would be one skater friend was dating a guy that was allegedly he lived out of town, and it was a whole thing, and the let's see, he said he worked for a government agency in another city. She was telling me that he would come into town, visit her every so often. So he would come into town on his days off, quote unquote, and they'd hang out, they'd hook up, and then he'd disappear. And his excuse was that he had to be out in the field doing his job because, he'd have to work outdoors and do different things outside of a regular 9 to 5. And, what is this? Sorry, I was reading a text message when I got in. So, train of thought. So the issue was the fact that, I don't know what that one is. The issue was the male never gave a consistent story, quote unquote. He would tell her, yeah, I'm gonna be in town and do something. We'll hook up and we'll we'll meet up and hang out, which eventually meant that they were gonna hook up. The friend would kind of just sit there, like Spanish saying called novia de rancho, which is a girlfriend from the ranch, a girlfriend from the farm, that a city guy would kind of wow them or dazzle them or show them a good time one weekend. And then for months on end, this girl would just wait every Friday night. Oh, he's going to come see me this Friday. He's going to come see me this Friday. He's going to come see me this weekend. And it was difficult because I'm normally an asshole, but I try to be nice, especially to my friends, especially the small circle of people that I keep around, that I keep frequently speak with. So it was difficult to politely say, hey, he is just stringing you along. Because that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear that there's going to be a happy ending, that there's going to be a chance of a relationship. If anything, they are hoping for marriage. But they would settle for just a long-term relationship with someone that they can be with. The fucked up part about it, in San Antonio, a lot of my skater friends, the females, hetero-cis females, they would put up with an abusive relationship, an abusive boyfriend, mentally, physically, emotionally or mentally or verbally abusive. I hadn't seen any of them that would put up with physical abuse, but gaslighting, verbal abuse, they'll put up with it because they are so afraid of being alone. And they figure they got to put up with that to have any validation. Like they lose their sense of self. There's one particular friend that I wish would listen, but no matter how many times I've reached out to her, she agrees or realizes, yeah, that's a problem, that this isn't working, blah, blah, blah. And the very next time she sees the dude, then they're back together. So they have a very passionate relationship. But my focus at the time, like I said, was trying to be in a nice way, tell them what, in one hand, what they wanted to hear, but also on the other hand, tell them what the guy was actually saying. So sometimes my advice would either fall on deaf ears or it wouldn't work out because I would give them hope that, yeah, maybe he'll come see you this weekend, maybe this, that, or the other, based off what they were telling me, knowing full well what the guy said. He's like, yeah, we'll see what we'll do this weekend. You know, a non-commitment from any male, any nothing concrete. If it's not a set in stone schedule, set in stone date, and by set in stone, I mean, yeah, this Friday at 7:30, I'm picking you up because we're gonna go out to eat, or Saturday morning, we're gonna meet up at this park at this time, and we're gonna just go for a walk or whatever. But you need a time and a place that's confirmed for what a scheduled date is. Whereas they were taking, oh yeah, we'll see, I'll see you this weekend, or we'll see what's up this weekend. It was never anything more than we'll see, or nothing more serious than, yeah, we'll see, or nothing committal, essentially. And that was frustrating because I didn't have a clue where this was coming from. They weren't telling me, oh yeah, we hooked up and I messaged him a couple of weeks later and wanted to see him again because she wanted to have a relationship. Um, you know, a lot of times after the thing failed or blew up, they would finally tell me the truth. Oh yeah, you know, it was just friends with benefits, one night stand, and I was trying to make it more. Or they'd met a few times and she thought he was a good guy, so she was actually holding out, withholding sex, which is fine. I'm not saying one should give it up just to have a relationship going, but she would withhold sex or um, nothing below the waist, essentially, until she saw that there was more of a potential or something more serious to have a relationship with, which is kind of a good strategy to let the guy know that you're serious or your intentions are to have a relationship, not just have random hookup sex, which personally, if I wasn't having sex before the second date, I was just going to drop them, or I would just keep the females around as kind of being able to reach out to her circle of friends and see who I could actually hook up with. Because if she's not willing, then if you're going to be my friend, then hook me up with your friends. Don't be shisty, right? So now that I'm older, now that I realize the importance of a relationship, the foundation being love, the foundation being good communication too. I mean, there's a lot of things that are important to make a relationship work and keep working. But yeah, so trying to keep the relationship work is a lot of work. It's not easy. It's not going to happen overnight. In the beginning, yeah, it is easy to start because it's dating. You're getting to know each other. You're filling each other out. Not well, I mean physically and um, I guess mentally, emotionally. Kind of figuring out where you fit in, how the relationship's going to work, what the dynamic is. If it's going to be 50-50, if it's going to be not so much transactional, but in the way you see each other. Okay, look, I don't have time to text you all day, every day. I'll text you good morning. How's your day going? If you want to message me about any problems you're dealing with, I'll listen. You know, there's all these things that go into building the foundation of a relationship that most people don't talk about or don't realize. And it's important to be communicative, to be able to express, okay, this is what I want, this is where we're going. For example, with my wife, our relationship at first was just friends with benefits. We just see each other on the weekends. We text every now and again during the week. At one point, through our interactions, the way she was with me when we were together, because it wasn't just sex, it was also hanging out for the weekend because we lived in two different cities. At the time, I lived in Houston and she lived in San Antonio. So we would see each other for an entire weekend at a time. It wasn't like we'd hook up and then just disappear, or she'd go home and I'd go home. It would I'd spend the weekend at her place, she'd spend the weekend at mine, or we'd have like little mini vacations where we would meet up at a hotel in some random town, some little old town between San Antonio, Houston, or we'd go down to Corpus, um, down to the Valley or Brownsville area, Brownsville, McAllen, or Austin. We would meet up and have events or have get-togethers, mini vacations, however you want to call it. And so those weekends that we spent together, it wasn't just a sex. We'd actually hang out. We'd get to know each other. We'd speak, talk about our past, talk about ourselves growing up. And sometimes you have that instant magnetic connection that you just want to spill your guts and tell that person everything about you because you want to make sure that they know everything about you, all your flaws, everything that you have that could be a turnoff to someone, to make sure you don't waste your time or your emotions on that person because you don't want to invest so much over time, over months, weeks, years, and then find out, oh, this is a deal breaker for me. So it's difficult to try to navigate that when you don't have that magnetic connection and you have to navigate and figure out, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to share with you. And while you're doing that, you would hope or expect them to ask questions, have a natural curiosity to want to know more about you. Because it's kind of, you can't just give out all your information. You have to push and pull. So you have to give some information, you got to pull some information. They got to pull from you a little bit more if they want a little more details. And so the relationship we had, I knew after a few weekends that I wanted her to be my girlfriend. I wanted to be with her monogamously. She wasn't so sure about it. She had recently gone through her divorce. Well, it'd been a while already, but her divorce was already finalized, and she quote unquote kind of like wanted to play the field without saying or telling me that that's what she wanted to do. And the more time we spent together, the more she realized, hey, she wanted to spend more time with me than with anyone else. And during the week, we would see other people in our respective hometowns or where we were living. And eventually she agreed. We agreed that we wanted to be in a relationship together after having a lot of conversations, both of us agreeing and stating that we didn't want to get remarried again. Both of us had the idea, the realization that a ring or a marriage certificate doesn't prove how much one loves another person. It's just a contract. And while there's more benefits for females, she just didn't want to have to be tied down, also having to deal with the whole aspect of legally changing her name and all things, credit cards, license, passport, all the whole nine. Then having to do that at work and all that kind of stuff. So we agreed, hey, we're never going to get married. I don't want to marry you. You don't want to marry me. That's great. We just want to be together till we die. That's fine. Or at least early on, we hadn't decided that it was going to be as long as we wanted it to be. We figured, okay, it'll end once we're in our old age, but it wasn't really something that we spoke about. But it was something that kind of was in the air that we both felt, we both acknowledged. We just never said it out loud. So in that relationship that we had, because we were always open in our communication, we always made sure that no one went to bed angry, neither she or I. Sometimes she would go to bed frustrated, and she would wait till the morning or the next evening and tell me, okay, look, this has been bugging me. This is on my mind. I don't like how you said or did X, Y, or Z. She'd lay it out, and she'd tell me, I'd appreciate it if you didn't do it, or if you did it, don't let me know about it, whatever. She would kind of propose an idea of how she wanted things to be taken care of, or how she wanted things to be avoided. And more often than not, because she came to me in a manner that was feminine and open and not aggressive, that it was just, here's my problem, and I want you to fix it. Versus the relationship that I had with my ex-wife, it was often yelling, not so much arguing, but it was just yelling and very aggressive, very loud. It was like, you did this and I don't like it and blah, blah, blah. And if you ever do this again, X, Y, or Z, right? And so being able to re-examine my past relationships, the ones that, well, they all failed. Well, my wife died, but the relationship before that, they failed because I was a dumbass. I was an asshole. But being able to look back on those relationships and realize, okay, they failed because I was an asshole, but at the same time, it wasn't all on me. It was some of them. So it wasn't 100% my fault. With my ex-wife, I would probably say it was 75% my fault. But we both weren't ready for that relationship. We were just kind of thrown in together and like, okay, fine, let's just get married. It wasn't, or at least on my half, my behalf, my side of the story. I didn't get married because I loved her. I just got married. Okay, fine. We've been together for so long. Let's just go ahead and get it over with. That was my, excuse me, that was my mentality. That was my idea behind it. With my last wife, that was because of love. That, well, it was because of love, but we were more pragmatic about it. That the reason we got married was in Mexico to essentially just get her to be able to have Mexican citizenship because I have dual citizenship through my parents. And because of the way I grew up, because of my lifestyle, but me riding a motorcycle all the time and not being super careful aside from wearing a helmet, we just kind of figured, okay, I'll be the first one to go because I was older and females generally outlive males. She would be able to have access to not only having dual citizenship, but properties that I have in Mexico. And we kept it a secret, kept it to ourselves. Mostly, she didn't want to have to deal with having to change her name. The second part was also she didn't want to be hounded by her side of the family to have a kid. Both of us didn't want any kids. I had one that, was already out there, but he was going to be an adult, or he was almost an adult by that point. And we figured, okay, this is just between us. This is just for essentially legal purposes. And for me to take care of one particular thing if she happened to die before me, which we didn't really think about or consider because who dies in their 30s? So with that as an example of how a relationship should work, understanding what makes a relationship strong, and also having a lot of friends tagging my wife and I whenever we had any pictures that we had of us together. A lot of them would often get tagged relationship goals or jealous or some other hashtag, essentially that they wanted the relationship that we had. Not that the relationships they had were bad or not good, just that a lot of our friends were single. And a few of the ones that our friends that were married or were together would occasionally chime in or agree or like the comment of relationship goals, but trying to figure out a way to make that into a recipe or figure out a recipe, what is it? Reverse engineer a recipe out of what we had was difficult to do because we're in the mix. We're already the dough. We're already kneaded together. So to be able to take a step back was difficult in that moment. And after my wife passed away and a few years ago, being able to look back on what we had, how we got there, and what other people wanted, and also considering our age and our maturity level, because most people in their 20s, especially nowadays, is everything just focuses on the hookup culture about just getting it in and being with as many people as possible, or not doing anything that's what's the word? Not dating with intent, not dating with purpose. Just dating to have fun, dating to hook up, and just to see what's out there. And realizing or consolidating what I know from machismo, how I grew up, versus the red pill, which I've kind of learned about. I forgot how I fell upon it. But it was through Reddit and seeing what's there. Machismo and red pill are kind of like a Venn diagram of each other, where they differ is, if you're considering traditional machismo, the pure form of machismo, is that machismo is about having a family, protecting it, and taking care of it with some bravado and all the other things that go with it. The bad part of machismo, the other half, is having your cake and eating it too, where you have your family and you have this little side piece that you see every now and again, but it's never a emotional or loving transaction or relationship with the side piece. It's just purely sex or just one night stands, mm, depending on your interpretation or how that particular person was raised. And it can even be abusive. So there's kind of like three parts to it, depending on how you're raised, your the money that you make, the frustrations that you have to deal with not being able to provide for your family. Whereas the red pill is the bravado, the being an alpha, being in charge, but more focused on having all the alphaness, being dominant, being a leader and whatnot, but with the idea or the goal or the intent to sleep with as many women as possible. So, like I said, it took me almost 40 years to realize that the important part of a relationship isn't sex. Sex is 10% of a relationship, if that. I mean, consider how many times you've had, how many times, consider how frequent you have sex with your partner, assuming you're in a relationship. If you would have to have sex every day of the week for an hour to have a significant percentage of the relationship. Granted, sex doesn't always have to be the climax. Sex doesn't have to be penis and vagina penetration. It could just be fondling. It could be arousal. It could just be foreplay. It could be any number of things. But even then, having some form of sex isn't going to happen all the time. Normally, I got to remember where I found the statistic, but sex is normally a once a week thing to once every 2 weeks, depending on the age and the health of the couple based on this statistic. And I need to find it again. So sex isn't a big part of a relationship. It is a big motivator for relationships to procreate, at least for most couples or for most people, it's to procreate and to have children, as well as for pleasure. But we're so used to having our cake and eating it too, especially with the immediacy of now, of everything being so instant with social media, with online ordering, online shopping and online ordering for food, that we're not used to being able to take things slower, slowing things down and appreciating what we have. So in the next coming weeks, I'm going to have a better series or idea of how to break down the different ages into the different things about relationships and sex and what's important and what's not. Because while you're in your 20s, yeah, have all the sex and all the fun that you want. But the ones that are going to suffer the most are females, because after a certain point, or let's just be honest, females have a biological clock. For the most part, by 35, it's too late to have a kid. If you do, there's a lot of risks between what your kids are going to have. There's a lot of risk with the kids possibly having some type of illness, Down syndrome, palsy, birth defects. The older you are, the more difficult it is to even maintain that pregnancy. So the time clock for females is usually 35. However, as far as age and looks and beauty, and also ethnicity, you have between 25 and 30 before you can still attract the same males that you could when you were in your early 20s. Because males are always going to be visual. Regardless of their age, males, they may not want to date or be with a young, attractive female, 18 to 25, but they are going to turn our heads. They are going to get our attention. They are going to make us look and follow them on Instagram, maybe have some likes or whatever. But the desire, the idea, the drive, the urges that males have is going to have that intent or have the intent or the desire for younger females. And by younger, like I said, I mean 18 to 25. Now, 25 to 30, they might still be attractive. They might be able to take care of themselves, beauty regimens, plastic surgery or whatnot. But once they get to that age, there's a lot of issues and baggage that people have to do with. Hey, JB, they can get it. Sorry. Yeah, they can get it, but that doesn't mean you're going to want to have a relationship with them. No matter the age group, personally at least, they're going to want someone that's a little more mature, a little more on their level. But like I said, the focus and the whole idea is that in the coming weeks, I'm going to have more episodes that are going to focus and break down the different age groups, the different, not stigmas, but the issues that there are between dating for 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds, and eventually beyond. But in this case, I want to thank you for being here. Sorry for this episode being kind of so haphazard, but like I said, I had a guest that was scheduled to be on. They had a family emergency. So thank you for taking your time to being up here so late, watching me, putting up with all this crap. I'm going to talk to you, JB, after this. I'll hit you up in a minute. So in any case, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I love you. Until next time.